Nitric oxide potential in men's health has been widely studied. I'll go ahead and reproduce the rewritten script and SEO package now. I want to talk with you today about something that unfolds slowly, quietly, and for most men, with almost no warning at all. One day you notice that something your body used to handle automatically, without any conscious effort, just isn't showing up the way it once did. That early morning firmness starts to fade, response becomes inconsistent, and even though the desire hasn't gone anywhere, the body simply doesn't cooperate the way it used to. When this begins, most men jump straight to the same conclusion: my testosterone must be crashing. It's just getting older. There's nothing to be done about it. I understand why that feels like the obvious explanation, but after spending 12 years immersed in men's health and vascular physiology, I have to share something that will completely shift how you think about this issue. For most men past 60, this isn't fundamentally a hormonal problem at all. It's a circulation problem, and circulation, no matter your age, is something we have real power to influence through diet. Today I want to walk you through one particular food that produces a genuinely remarkable effect inside your blood vessels. This is a food that keeps appearing at the top of cardiovascular studies, urology research, and aging physiology literature for men looking to naturally support their vascular system. There's nothing exotic about it. You've likely walked right past it in the produce aisle countless times without a second glance. But stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand your own body in a way that most men never do. Before we dive in, go ahead and tap that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and leave a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. I want to know who's part of this community. Now, let's get into the science. Let me pose a question. If I told you that difficulty with erections in men over 60 is actually one of the earliest red flags of cardiovascular disease, not simply a byproduct of aging, not a shortage of testosterone, but an early warning coming straight from your blood vessels, would that reshape how you dealt with it? It should, because that's precisely what the evidence points to. Here's the biology, broken down simply. An erection is fundamentally a vascular event. It depends entirely on blood flow. When signals of arousal move from the brain down to the pelvic area, they set off the release of a molecule known as nitric oxide. Nitric oxide instructs the blood vessels in that region to loosen up, expand, and fill with blood. Once that happens, firmness naturally follows. It's a mechanical process, plain and direct. Now here's where the aging process throws a wrench into things. Once a man passes 55, the cells lining the blood vessels, called endothelial cells, begin losing their efficiency. They generate less nitric oxide. The vessels themselves grow stiffer, more prone to inflammation, and less responsive to signaling. Oxidative stress builds up over time. The entire system slows down. And because the vessels supplying that particular region are among the smallest in the whole body, they're often the first to show signs of this decline. This is precisely why so many physicians today view erectile changes as an early cardiovascular warning sign, often appearing years before chest pain or shortness of breath ever show up. So what does this actually mean for you? It means that if your attention has been fixed entirely on testosterone, popping supplements, obsessing over hormone panels, you might have been chasing the wrong target the whole time. The real focus should be your vascular health, your body's nitric oxide supply, and how responsive your blood vessels are. And that's exactly where today's featured food enters the picture. My name is Dr. Narita, and for the past 12 years I've focused specifically on men's vascular health, the physiology of aging, and the connection between nutrition and sexual wellness. I've sat with hundreds of men who felt frustrated, embarrassed, and were quietly watching their confidence slip away. Men who had tried nearly everything imaginable and still felt betrayed by their own bodies. As I dug deeper into the research, one pattern kept surfacing again and again. The men who maintained the strongest firmness, who reported better morning responses, and who simply felt more energized and alive overall, tended to share specific nutritional habits. And one food, in particular, kept coming up over and over. Not a pill. Not a prescription. An actual food, one backed by a specific, well-documented biological mechanism, one that's been researched specifically in older populations, and one that's likely sitting in your grocery store's produce section right now, completely overlooked. That food is beetroot. Let me explain exactly why it's so effective, and why it matters especially for men over 60. Before you dismiss this as too basic and scroll on, stay with me, because the underlying mechanism is genuinely impressive. Mechanism 1, the nitric oxide shortfall, and beetroot's unique solution. We've already established that aging cuts down nitric oxide production. The enzymes responsible for creating it slow their output. The endothelial cells that release it become less capable. The end result is blood vessels that stop responding the way they should. Most typical interventions attempt to push harder on those same aging pathways, forcing a system that's already struggling to keep up. Beetroot takes a completely different approach. It happens to be one of nature's richest sources of dietary nitrates. And here's the crucial part. Once you consume those nitrates, your body transforms them into nitric oxide through a completely separate route, one that runs through your saliva and gut bacteria, entirely bypassing the aging enzymes and the compromised endothelial cells. This alternate pathway stays fully functional even as we get older. It essentially routes around the broken part of the system and delivers nitric oxide through a side door that age hasn't managed to shut. That's exactly why beetroot has been the subject of so much research in older populations specifically. Scientists weren't primarily interested in its effects on young athletes. They were drawn to it precisely because of how differently it performs in aging bodies. What does the research actually show? Clinical studies conducted with older adults have found that consistent beetroot intake correlates with improved arterial elasticity, measurable drops in blood pressure, and enhanced oxygen delivery to tissues throughout the body, including tissue in the pelvic region. Cardiovascular research has detected improvements in blood flow within just 2 to 3 hours of consumption. And when intake becomes a daily habit, those benefits compound over time. For men dealing with gradual vascular decline, this means, in practical terms, that the vessels which need better nitric oxide supply begin functioning more effectively as time goes on. Morning response slowly comes back. Firmness and staying power improve, not instantly or dramatically, but in a measurable, meaningful way over the course of weeks. Mechanism 2, the inflammation piece. Here's something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in discussions about men's health. Chronic, low-grade inflammation the time. Reason number 3, running low on fuel, hormonal causes. The third major area worth examining is hormonal imbalance, particularly low testosterone. Here's the science behind it. Testosterone acts as the core fuel source for the entire male reproductive system. It doesn't just influence desire and sperm production, it's also essential for the seminal vesicles and prostate to function at full capacity, since these are the glands responsible for the majority of the fluid volume. When testosterone drops to a meaningfully lower level, the whole system begins to slow down. The effects can be significant. At first, you might simply notice a smaller volume of fluid. But as time goes on, this shortfall can also show up as a dip in libido, erections that aren't as firm, and a climax that feels noticeably less intense. Beyond the bedroom, many men report fatigue, shifts in mood, and a gradual loss of muscle mass. Fortunately, the path forward is clear. This condition is often labeled hypogonadism, a hormonal deficiency that responds well to treatment. Once a simple blood test confirms the shortfall, carefully monitored hormone replacement therapy can often restore not just fluid production, but also energy levels, desire, and overall quality of life. It would be a mistake to simply write this off as an inevitable part of aging. I've watched men in their 70s return to my office after treatment and describe feeling like they'd been handed a second chance at life. That's not an exaggeration. That's what happens when your hormone levels are properly corrected. While the majority of these cases turn out to be manageable, as your physician, I also have a responsibility to flag the more serious exceptions. Dry ejaculation can occasionally point towards something more significant, which is why it's important to pay close attention to any accompanying symptoms. Here's when you need to see a urologist right away. if dry ejaculation shows up suddenly, without any clear explanation, and especially if it comes with pain, blood present in urine or fluid, fever, or a loss of feeling in the genital region, don't delay seeking care. These are warning signs that call for urgent evaluation. Certain neurological conditions such as Parkinson's disease, long-term uncontrolled diabetes, and in rare instances specific urological cancers, can all interfere with either the plumbing or the nerve signals involved in this process. I'm not sharing this to frighten you, I'm sharing it because catching things early makes all the difference. The men who fare best are consistently the ones who come in promptly, while treatment options are abundant and any damage still has the chance to be reversed. Beyond the physical side of things, we can't overlook the emotional weight this places on men. So many men link the presence of fluid directly to their sense of performance and masculinity. When that fluid disappears, feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and frustration can quietly take hold. It becomes common for men to start pulling back from intimacy altogether, worried about being judged or feeling somehow less than whole. They withdraw from their partners. They stop initiating closeness. They suffer in silence rather than speaking up. Here's the emotional reassurance I want to offer you. The most powerful step toward breaking that cycle is knowledge paired with open conversation. Recognizing that this is a physical change.